Hello, my name is Ashley Lothian. I'm the Curator of Education here at the San Bernardino County Museum. I'm joined by Museum Curator of History, Jennifer Dickerson. Thank you for joining me, Jennifer.
Thanks, Ashley.
Can you share your career journey emphasizing your first memory of being interested in your respective field?
Sure. Well, I've always really loved history. It was always one of my favorite subjects growing up and in school. I actually went to college though as a pre-med student, and after I took my first history related class, which was classical mythology, so I was learning about Greek and Roman mythology, I absolutely fell in love with classics and with history. So by my fourth year at UCLA, I decided that I wanted to pursue a career in history field. And so after I graduated, I went to UCR for a year and did post-bac studies related to American history. And then after I did my studies at UCR, I went to Cal State Fullerton and enrolled in an MA program with a focus on colonial American history. I was really fortunate enough during my time at UCR and Cal State Fullerton to find a job at the Mission Inn Museum. I knew I wanted to be in the history field and do something history related, but then once I started working at a museum, I just knew that the museum field was for me.
And what is the most asked question you get as Curator of History?
So I basically get the same response every time somebody asks me what I do and I tell them I'm a curator. It usually goes something to the effect of, "Oh, you're a curator? That's so cool. So what does a curator do?" Again, if you're not in the museum field, then I understand completely. And it's actually a lot of fun to explain to people what I do on a daily basis. So when I tell them that I work with old stuff all day and that I get to do exhibits and help plan public programs and work with historic sites, they, I think, get a better sense of what curators do. And it's also fun to share what I'm so passionate about. So hopefully by the end of that question and me answering, they have a better idea of what a curator is.
So within the history collection, what is either your favorite object, objects? What would you say?
So it's a little hard to choose one object. In the history collections here at the San Bernardino County Museum, they're comprised of a bunch of different things. So we have a ton of things in our collections. Our three-dimensional objects, so our artifacts, are some of the biggest objects we have, our trains, our cars. And then we also have objects that are super small, like a needle or a thimble or a button. And then we also have archival material, which includes letters, documents, books, and photographs. So I would say that my favorite object or type of object is our photograph collection. It really, really, truly tells the history of our region. Not to be cliche, but a picture really is worth 1,000 words. And like if you look at this screen right now, each of these pictures are taken at different times throughout our local history and in different areas. So the top left picture is in Big Bear, and the two right pictures are in San Bernardino. And then the bottom left is in Redlands, and each of them tells a different story about our community, which I just find fascinating. And similarly to these pictures, you can see somebody enjoying a sunny day in Apple Valley or mining in the late 1800s in Calico, or transporting citrus, which again, our county is the largest county in the nation. And so not only do we have so much history to tell because we have a history of over 150 years, but we have so much history to tell in regards to different areas within the county. So definitely the photograph collection.
And to date, what has been your favorite exhibit that you've worked on here at the museum?
So exhibits are one of my favorite things to work on. We get to share our natural and cultural history with our visitors and with our community through our exhibits. I'm going to cheat a little, and I can't pick just one exhibit. I'm going to pick two, if that's okay. So one of my favorite exhibits that we worked on is our Minerals Rock exhibit. And for one reason that I like this exhibit so much is that we as curators all got to work on it together. So the exhibit itself is very interdisciplinary, and we also got to make the exhibit highly interactive. So when guests come in, they can come and touch a touch screen, and like the upper left-hand corner picture shows, or they can actually be a scientist and work in a laboratory if like you look at the top right picture, or they can go into a UV room and press a button and see the different colors of different minerals and specimens. And then with this exhibit, I wasn't the lead curator on it, our Earth Sciences curator was, but we definitely got to tell the story of history within the topic of minerals, and learning and showing people the mining history of our region was just so interesting. And it's great to show people things that they may not realize or that they don't know. Like if you look at this screen, objects that were used in the mining industry that maybe they never even gave a second thought to or didn't even know existed.
And what is this object right here, this blowpipe apparatus? What was that been used for?
So that was actually used to make an analysis of different specimens. So they would use this, people in the mining industry, to determine what type of specimens they had, to also determine different aspects of that mineral and give a complete analysis of that specimen. And then, like I said, I have two favorite exhibits. So my second favorite exhibit is, as you can see, our culture exhibit, which deals with and tells the story of the citrus industry in our local area. Similar to Minerals Rock, this exhibit is highly interactive. So when guests come, they can enjoy a fun experience learning about the citrus industry. And we also, as curators, got to work on it together. So again, this exhibit is disciplinary.
Can you speak a little bit more on this monitor here and these 3 listening stations?
Sure. So if you look, like you mentioned, along the wall, there's a few 3 listening stations. We were fortunate enough to be able to interview some people in our local area, and they told us their stories and how they lived in the citrus industry, what they did, what positions they held, where they worked. It was a lot of fun, and it was even interesting to note that the citrus industry is still alive and thriving today, which one of our oral histories talks about. And it's neat to see how that industry has progressed and grown and changed over several decades. And then, as you pointed out, the monitor on the screen is actually part of a listening station and a recording station that's part of the exhibit, where guests who are in the exhibit can tell their story, and they go into the recording booth. We curate the videos, and then we share them with guests that come next.
And during the exhibit development process, just how important is it to include local oral stories within an exhibit like this?
You know, we really feel, and particularly I feel, that it's important to involve our community. Our community tells their own story really well. And so it's wonderful to work with them. We also worked with a storytelling group who was made up of different members within our local area, people from local colleges, San Manuel, County Archives, the Citrus State Park. And they really helped us tell a well-rounded story. And so things like oral histories in that listening and recording station, they really help bring the exhibit to life, but also help us tell a more accurate and a more complete story of something like the citrus industry. And for example, if you look at the picture on your screen, the bottom left is an image from a video that UCR shared with us about what they're doing to combat Asian citrus psyllid. And they're actually using parasitic wasps to help with that pest that's damaging so many of the citrus crops throughout our region. And then the other aspects of the are really neat in that I like how we were able to put objects and intermingle them with technology like this screen or the screen in the back and like the recording booth.
And these objects here on the right-hand side, what are those used for? Or were they used for?
So these are some of my favorite objects. I know that I chose archival photographs, but these are also part of my favorite objects as well. They're orchard heaters, or what we call smudge pots, and they're not really used today. They weren't great for the environment, and there's more advanced technology now, but a lot of local individuals will recognize them. And so if you look, the three larger pieces are the three smudge pots. And then the little canister in the middle, the red one, that's an orchard heater lighter, so a smudge pot lighter. You would use that to get the rest of them lit and working.
So what do you like best about your job?
Oh, so many things. Really, it's so much fun to get to live and breathe, which for me is history. And again, I get to work with old stuff all day, which is a ton of fun. But I think my favorite aspect of being a curator and working here at the county museum is that I truly get to work with and see our community. So whether it's doing public programs, which is one of the best ways that we get to work with our community members, in that not only do we get to converse and intermingle with people from the community who are visiting the museum that day for that event, but we also get to work with our community partners, which include county departments and other nonprofit historical groups, especially for history-related events. But we get to work with them. They help us develop different content for these programs, and they help us interact with our visitors and community. And it's just so nice to see a family come into the museum and enjoy their day and get a big kick out of whatever we're doing that day, whether it's looking at objects like at this table or doing arts and crafts, or as you look in the bottom right, learning how to play a table game from one of our partners.
Mm-hmm. So how has the museum been able to continue public programming during the current pandemic?
I think, like with most museums and other organizations too, we all have had to pivot, or maybe a lot, due to closures and due to the pandemic. And I know one of the big questions that we asked ourselves as museum staff was, how do we continue to meet our mission? And how do we continue to reach out to those in the community? And one of the ways that we've done this is by doing virtual programs. So obviously we couldn't have programs on site at the museum, so we did them virtually this year. And it seems like people just really responded and really appreciated that. And I know it was nice to see everybody enjoy them. If you look at the bottom left picture, that's one of our partners, Regional Parks, doing a video for our Old West Days virtual event. So program partners have been developing educational content, usually videos, and we've been posting them on our social media and sharing them with our community. And it seems to have not only helped us engage with our community members, but kept our connection to those community members alive during this hard time.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jennifer. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, Ashley.